So first, congratulations on the new album, Luna's Daydream.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Nick's in a band called Better Strangers, and I actually saw, I think it was an iteration of some of the musicians in your group, What You Know. Was that?
Yeah. Well, it would have been probably like what 4 or 5 years ago,
Yeah,
and
I
it's
saw you
this.
guys in Miami. Yeah.
Yeah, same. Well, obviously, same bassist and guitarist.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's kind of uh, we've been playing music together for a number of years now. So that was like one of the first iterations of our kind of musical project with the two guys.
That's cool. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I saw the music video you released, Change,
Oh yeah.
and it had a lot of home video footage.
Yeah, it was honestly. I mean, I remember we spoke about it, and Ricky, our singer, was just like suggesting, "Hey, like it's got that vibe in the song. Like, why not just go through some home videos?" So I was back in Switzerland. I was born there, and I was going through a bunch of like old videos and kind of getting the best bits and downloading them. So it was fun to put together, and I think it was definitely fun for all the parents and all the family members to kind of see it. It was like a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, nice little tear jerker.
That's right.
But
That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, me personally, I've been playing piano since I was 7, and I now do that as a career. But the drums are always my first love, and I'm always drawn to the drums. And I was curious if you can play other instruments, or was it always
yeah,
drums?
well, I mean, broadly in my life, it's always been drums. I mean, that's just kind of been always a thing. But as time has gone on, for like writing purposes, I learned how to play guitar and piano and a little
Hmm.
bit of bass. I'm not like I don't really like play bass when I'm at home.
Hmm.
It's mainly just guitar and piano, or drums, obviously. But that's I live in an apartment, so I can't really just go
Yeah, yeah,
out of
yeah.
nowhere to start playing. I'm gonna get lots of complaints. But I think mainly the way I approach those instruments, like because like drumming is something that I can do out on the road, and I can do that in a recording setting and all that. Whereas piano I do. I mean, a lot of stuff on the Luna's Daydream EP, a lot of that I did on the piano. But the guitar, it's just really a writing tool for me. I didn't really get it too much into like the theory and stuff about it. I just really enjoyed writing on it, and I think it's important for any drummer, because ultimately, like for drummers in bands, given that we don't play a melodic instrument, I feel like to kind of, I guess, you know, give your like put input into the songwriting process, knowing and having some sort of knowledge about the instrument and knowing how to play it, and being able to like offer ideas that way. I think it really helps, given that it's not always the most inspiring thing when it's just like, check out this drum beat, and everybody
Hmm.
else isn't really kind of like, well, it's just a drum beat. Whereas if you can kind of put something forward with a melodic instrument, I think it helps a lot.
Yeah, and it probably makes the writing process as a group more fun because you're listening differently than if you were just a drummer.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right, cool. And then um, my first exposure to you was seeing you on the Not Dead Yet tour a few
Hmm.
years back, and I saw you in Boston and New York, and it was awesome. You were,
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. That
yeah,
was that was that was a really fun. I mean, it was my first tour, and it was just it was weird. It was like, I mean, it was so long. We were on the road for like, I mean, obviously we took breaks in between. We did a few legs, but at the end, it's like we this tour started and finished in the span of like 3 years or something like that. So it was like I started off when I was like 16, and by the time I ended it, I was like 18 going on 19, and it was just like took up this whole massive chunk of my life, which was really great. And it's kind of being able to learn and be on the road at that age was just really helpful in the big picture.
so being on the road that long, you're with the same musicians every night, and probably off stage too.
Hmm.
So um, did you learn anything professionally or musically, any values, either to sustain that long of a tour, or a
Yeah,
mindset when you're playing in front of that group of people?
yeah, I think there's kind of different sides of it. I think one thing that I definitely did learn, and probably one of the most important things where I can kind of take it back to how to approach things with my band is the whole, being on the road and how stuff gets handled, because everybody has to be at a certain place at a certain time, and being able to really kind of manage your time so that you're not late. Or because there's the saying, it's like if you're early you're on time, and if you're on time you're late, and if you're late you're fired.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
so just all that about how the process goes of how everything works. And musically, I would just say, I would just say more like, trust the fact that we've been rehearsing long enough where it's kind of like, there's no need to tense up. I mean, because I remember at the first few shows, I was really nervous just because they're like the first show that we've ever done, and it's like I've never played like an arena before, and that was really nerve wracking. But after that, it's like it's on cruise control because everybody is so good at what they do, especially in my dad's band. I mean, they're all like these seasoned musicians that have been doing it for years and years, and guys that have been with so many different artists. So it's like there's no kind of sense of like, "Ooh, are we going to sound bad tonight?" Or it's like it's always we sound terrific,
Yeah.
and that's just due to like the rehearsals and everybody just being good at what they do. I mean, like playing on a daily basis with guys like Leland Sklar and Daryl
Hmm.
Sturmer and the Vine Street Horns and everybody in that band. It's just like it's a real treat for me as a drummer because I get to kind of stand back, and I mean I do the rhythm stuff, but I just get to listen to what they're doing. And that's something that I was always super comfortable with because I just knew that when I had to go up there, my only job was play the drums.
Hmm.
Um, and everybody else just had it down. So I definitely say, I mean, musically, that's kind of where I kind of really appreciated that side of it. But yeah, I mean, also, I think different people have different ways of like coping with just being on the road, the way that you kind of pace yourself on a day-to-day basis, and what you do on your days. So some people just want to stay in their hotel room. Some people like want to go out and see the city that you're in.
Hmm.
Um, Ultimately, I would just say that when it's time for the show, it just nothing else. Kind of put your phone away. Nothing else really matters because the only reason we're here, whether you went out today or whether you didn't, is just to play this show. So I
Yeah.
would yeah, put it
Are
that way.
there moments when you're in a place like Madison Square Garden? It's got such a historic, it's a legendary venue. Are you ever sitting there and you're just looking around going, "Oh man, I'm playing the Garden"? And are there moments like where you're almost finding yourself where you snap back and you're like, "Oh, where am I?" Like, are there
Yeah,
cues
absolutely.
on stage, like if it's another player or something that you look to and like you've either memorized their motions when you're getting to a certain part of a song or something that kind of gets you on track?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there was a few venues that really like got me. I mean, the Garden was one of them because we did the Garden on two different nights. So the first night was really the one that I went like, oh my god, we're playing Madison Square Garden,
Hmm.
and it's funny because all the guys in the band, it's like their 17th
Yeah, I
time
know
playing
they've always
Madison
played
Square,
it. Yeah.
and I was just like, whoa, Madison Square Garden. But there was a few venues when we did Hyde Park in London. We did that. It was like at the end of the first leg we did. Um, and it was a really big audience, like 75,000 people. And I've grew up loving bands like the Chili Peppers and the Foo Fighters, and they played at Hyde Park. So when I was there, I was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
we're playing Hyde Park, and stuff like the Maracanã Stadium in Rio,
Hmm.
all those venues that like were really surreal to play for me. Um, and there definitely was a few moments where um, well, there's some moments where it's because you're caught up with the fact that like it's the venue you're playing and it's like a big occasion, and then all of a sudden you're playing like Can't Hurry Love or something, and it's kind of like the same beat the whole time, and you're just like, I don't know if we're in the first verse, last
Right,
verse, I
right.
don't know
Yeah.
where we are in the song. So there's definitely some motions that I can, certain cues for certain songs. Like on that song, we would go directly into Dance into the Light, so I could see the horns coming back on stage, and I knew that okay, we're about to end this song. If ever I needed some sort of cue.
Yeah.
And actually, Brad Cole, the keyboardist on that song specifically, would always give me a look because everybody counts how many measures are at the end of that song a bit differently. So it was kind of for everybody's reassurance that okay, we're all on the same page, that we're
Yeah.
gonna end this song now. But I mean, there was definitely like certain guys on stage that I really started to kind of know their cues and and even not so much cues for parts, but certain inside jokes on certain parts of the song. When you have Leland Sklar turn around at you. I mean, there was a part on Dance into the Light, which is kind of a straightforward, drum groove with the snare on pretty much every beat. And Leland, it was just drums, and Leland would turn back at me and start clapping on like every offbeat and trying to throw me off in a funny way. And so, you know, that becomes like a little bit of an inside joke with the whole band. But ultimately, the venues really, at first, I was kind of really carried away by them. I think eventually a lot of the arenas start to kind of look the same, and you know that you're there to kind of do the job, but there's still those moments where you're playing, you know, whether it's a festival or a stadium, and you're like, wow, like this is awesome. Especially as, you know, I'm like a massive soccer fan. So, you know, certain stadiums that I've played on FIFA or stuff like that, or seen
Yeah,
games
right.
at, I'm like freaking out. I'm like here, but yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, and you know, it was just a great experience.
Yeah, I just have one more question about that tour. When you did the duet with Richie Garcia, it's like right in the middle of this in the show. Um, there's a cool moment where you guys are both playing, and your father's sitting in front of you with his back turned to the audience, just watching you guys. And it's such a cool visual thing to see. And I was curious of why you were doing that. If you consciously knew he's watching you every night, and what that must feel like if if I'm proud that I'm playing for him, or check out what I can do, you know, like, did you know that was going on? Because there's moments where he's dancing in the chair, and he's you know, he's air drumming along to you, and I thought that was such a cool moment.
Yeah, I mean that whole duet was, I think, was such a great part of that show. Honestly, because when he would do that, my dad would kind of go on, he'd kind of come back, like, you know, backstage, not backstage, but, you know, a bit further back, because I can usually just see him right above my toms and my cymbals. That's kind of how I see him. So most of the time when he was doing that, I couldn't see him unless I kind of saw him through one of my toms, and I would see he's looking at me, and I'm like, all right, like this is, you know, like, why are you like judging me or something like that, you know, in a funny way. Yeah. But it was never kind of like a pressure thing, especially not on the solo part. And don't get me wrong, when there's certain songs that have distinct drum parts, you know, you want to make sure that you're nailing them the right way. And especially considering he's the one who played all of them, making sure that, you know, you're checking all the boxes. But on the solo, I knew that it's just like, you know, I'm just soloing and Richie's soloing, and it's kind of not really that much pressure on that moment. But it honestly was great to have him involved, because after that we'd go down and we'd do the cajon thing with him. And that was so great to kind of see him, because obviously his the issues that he had with his foot and his back kind of really kind of put a halt into his drumming. And so being able to see him play the cajon, you know, doing something rhythmic was really great. And seeing that he still has certain chops and the way he approaches things was really fun for me to see. Because really the majority of my life, I spent really knowing my dad as the solo artist, the singer. You know, it's not until now that we've been preparing for the Genesis stuff that I really started digging into him as a drummer, because that was just never part of my life. You know, like when I was born, it was more near the tail end of his career. And it was just really great to kind of do that with him. And just the fact that when you do a drum solo, a lot of the time, whether it's with anybody, you do a drum solo and everybody likes it because it's drumming and it's fast or whatever. But being able to play a drum solo and seeing somebody who actually knows drums, and so you throw in a few licks and you're like, you know, you kind of know that you both know what's going on, and it's just more than just, wow, like cool drum solo. It's a real kind of cool thing to share with him, knowing that he has that knowledge, and that, you know, when we're all doing it's working out like that.
Very cool. Yeah. So yeah, switching gears, the Genesis tour you just mentioned, you're going on tour with Genesis now. So
yes,
the rehearsing, I'm sure you've been rehearsing forever, because the tour keeps getting pushed back because the pandemic. You probably just want to play now.
I know, it's been such a weird experience. Like we the first rehearsals we did were in like January 2020. That was like because we finished the Not Dead Yet tour in like October 2019. And so they had spoken about it the summer, like that summer, saying, hey, you know, we want to try going on the road. But we didn't know if we were going on the road, because I think the January 2020 rehearsals were kind of to see A, how it would sound, and B, if I was going to be a good fit to play drums with them. And so we did those rehearsals. They went great. But there weren't any dates lined up already. And by the end of that, they all said it, you know, we all were really happy with what we had done. And they announced the dates, and like 2 weeks after they announced the dates, the world
Yeah.
completely changed.
Hmm.
And I remember actually being in rehearsal in January, and like, there was reports on the news about like this virus in China. That was all it was. And we're like, wow, crazy. I mean, but this thing's gonna pass. And I remember Tony Banks being like, this could actually be a serious thing. And we're all like, nah, man. And then like, little did we know, it all changed. And then, so then, the dates were gonna be in like November 2020.
Hmm.
And then and so we had like already rehearsals and production rehearsals lined up before that. But then when the dates got pushed, the guys in the band, Mike, Tony, and my dad, were like, well, why not just use those rehearsal times? Because when the world does come back to normal, everything's going to be packed, everything's going to be busy, and we can just get everything down beforehand, so that when we do go out on the road, we only need like a week or two of actual music rehearsals, because all the production is done.
Hmm.
So we did that in October, November, where I flew to the UK, and we had about like 80 to 100 people in the crew getting COVID tested every 5 days, which was not fun, but and it worked out great. And we honestly, like, the show at the end of it was this really awesome, production. And yeah, so, but it was just funny to, like, I mean, both in January and November, you get really tight and you get the songs sounding really good. And then you're like, all right, guys, see you in 10 months.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Like you
it's,
see you sent the teaser video out of the tour. It
mhm.
looks like a finished product. Like you guys are ready to go.
Well, it is. I
Yeah.
mean, I remember on the last few days, we could have gone on the road right after that. I
Mhm.
mean, we actually we filmed and recorded the whole show over a process of like 2 days or something like that. And it was just weird to kind of be like, all right, well, bye guys, we'll
Yeah.
see you when this actually happens. And at the time, it started feeling a bit hopeless, because you kind of, the vaccine hadn't come out yet. And you're just kind of like, wow, if this is going to take another 2 years, some of the guys in the band are like, well, do we even want to do this if we have to wait another 2 years? But obviously now the situation's, the narrative has changed with the massive rollout that's happening. So I'm really hoping that it can happen in the fall. I mean, that'd be great. And I definitely think that, well, the first thing, considering everybody's been waiting for, like, now it's over a year, like a year and a half since we announced it or something like that,
Hmm.
um, that it's finally happening. And I think when it does go back to normal, it's weird. I mean, it's going to be weird. There's even some visualizers that are on some of the songs that kind of wouldn't have been possible without COVID. And
Okay.
COVID made, kind of made those visuals make sense. And it's just like, it's really great. I just hope that we can finally take it on the road,
Yeah.
because it's like this thing that, I've known about for like 2 years,
Right.
and it just never happens.
Yeah. 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 That's cool. So when you were first handed the set list for the Genesis tour, the songs are obviously much different than your dad's solo career, as in, more intricate, different time signatures. Did you look at it? What was your reaction? Was it like, oh man, there's a lot of work to do, or were you familiar already with the music?
Yeah, I mean, I was familiar with a lot of the songs. Don't get me wrong, there was definitely some songs that I had never really just, really decided to kind of play and really listen to. Not so much out of choice, it just never happened. It was just kind of, I didn't listen to it.
Yeah.
So I did know a lot of the songs, and I did know a lot of the material that they had done on the 2007 tour that they had done.
Hmm.
Um, so I was kind of familiar with that side of it. But there was definitely some songs that Tony and Mike threw out that I was like, wow, like, don't know that song, have to go back and, listen to it. And it's funny, I said this on another, I was talking to somebody beforehand, and I'm reluctant to give the names of the songs, because
Yeah.
if
Yeah. Yeah.
there's any Genesis fans here, they're gonna
They'll go
freak out that
crazy.
either it's
Yeah.
not on the set list, or either it is on the set list.
Yeah.
But there was like 3 songs that were like some of the most challenging songs I had to learn drumming wise.
Hmm.
And I had them down, and I was showed to rehearsal, like, ready to go, and then none of them were on the set list. And I was like, it was just, it was classic. But
Did you study? Did you study when you were rehearsing? Did you study the live version or the studio? Because as a fan going to the show, there's a lot of nuances that have evolved over the years in their
mhm.
live concerts. And how did you approach them?
And that's an interesting kind of topic because I had to really kind of mix both, depending on the approach. I feel like there are some, like, I mean, Chester Thompson, was holding the sticks with Genesis for years.
Mhm.
So a lot of the way he approached certain live songs was the way that I was like, that I would take it, and I would listen to the live versions and see how he did it. Especially songs like Land of Confusion and those kinds of poppier songs that that evolved production wise as they kept playing them. I mean, the studio version is nothing like the 2007 version, so I kind of took that approach. But
Right.
I do also think there are some songs where songs with distinct drum sounds or distinct parts, like Mama, for example, where I really went down back to the original version to really try and nail the fills and the drum sound and everything that's happening there, because I do think that for that it's really important. Like, what was done in the studio is what makes really the song and the drum sound. And for the progressive stuff, it really depended. I mean, I I I kind of mixed both. For the prog stuff, I mainly did the live stuff, but I based it off different tours, like whether it was the 2007 tour or the 92 tour, or even going back to like a 1981 or 2 tour,
Mhm.
which I think, there's a lot of things that evolved since then. And I think it's also just cool for me because, when there's songs that are in complex time signatures, you kind of approach the part with kind of what you heard and kind of go, okay, this is what works in this. But as I go, back further back, with different tours that they did, you start to hear different, tricks that my dad would do on the fills and all that. And it kind of just helps round up like how I can approach the song, and kind of not like the boundaries, but like the limits that I can't stray too far off. But
Yeah.
I know that if he did this in 1982, I can totally like do something that's similar, and it won't like throw the whole band off or be
Right.
unacceptable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it really just depends from song to song. But I like to, even if it is just the live version, I do like to still have some of the integrity of the studio version, especially because of the sounds and the type of drums that we're playing and stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. There was this footage that came out a couple of weeks ago of Genesis from like 73. I don't know if you saw that. They restored it into 4K, and
I
it's
think I saw it. Was it the one in I think it was in
Paris.
Belgium. Yeah,
Oh,
Paris. That was.
was it Belgium?
I don't know if it was Belgium or Paris, but it was a really old thing, and it was
Yeah.
weird for me because I was like, wow, like my dad looks like he's like 20, and I
He's
think
your
he
age
was.
that you are now.
Yeah.
It was crazy. But I was curious watching that. His kit was much smaller back then.
Mhm.
And so, prepping for this upcoming Genesis tour, did you choose a tour to model your kit after, or you more or less using the same one you used on the recent Not Dead Yet tour?
I mean, like pretty much it's the same kit that I was using on the Not Dead Yet tour, which is the kits, which is size-wise the kit he was using on the 2007 tour or the 92 tour.
Mhm.
I am using a bit of a bigger kick drum than on his solo stuff, because on the solo stuff I was using a 20-inch, which is what he used, which is great. But I'm used to, with my band, playing a 24-inch kick,
Mhm.
which is massive thing. So I wanted to kind of meet in the middle. I just think that with Genesis stuff, there's a lot more oomph to the parts,
Mhm.
and I wanted to kind of do that. There's more cymbals now and a few more things, especially trigger wise. There's so many triggers on the Genesis stuff because of the Simmons kits and the
Oh yeah.
gated
Mhm.
reverb thing. So it's like it's a bit more of an amplified, intense version of the kit I was using on the Not Dead Yet tour, but pretty much it's the same. And I just think that um, there's some songs like Mama and songs like that where you can't really not play it. You can't play it without the concert toms. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like, you can't really do those parts on a double-headed kit. I just feel like it doesn't sound great, and it needs that kind of whole big concert tom
Yeah.
feel. And because of that, though, I can still approach the old stuff with those drums. And when for that side of it, songs like First the Fifth are, that approach that I take with it is much more based on the live version, because that was the kit he was using. So I can't really do the stuff that's on the studio version. I mean, given the fact that that the song itself has changed so much since the studio version compared to what they did it live. But the you know, like you said, the drum set is completely different, and just, you know, that those big drums kind of allow for a kind of bigger and you know, more intense feel on the whole song,
Yeah.
which
Mhm.
but you know, I mean, it really depends. Like I said, you know, there's a lot of triggering going on, so from song to song it really depends on how I approach. And you know, on a song like let me think.
Careful, careful, careful. Don't don't give anything
Well,
away.
I mean, on a song like Land of Confusion, I'm not really too, you know, there isn't really that concert tom thing.
Hmm.
So the way I approach it, it's not really, you know, I don't have to completely smack the hell out of the
Yeah.
drum to kind of get it to do that thing. So
So is your approach to playing with those with the you know the I don't know, the reverse head on the drums are all taken off,
mhm.
the concert toms? Do you have to play harder? Like, what's the approach there?
I mean, it really depends what you're trying to achieve with the sound. I mean, like In the Air Tonight, when I used to do that on the Not Dead Yet tour, it's you like, because it has that sound that, you know, that was the kit that was used on it. You really need to kind of smack and get rim shots out of it, because that's what gives it that kind of barky gated
Hmm.
reverb kind of thing. Um, and so, but you know, then on when I'm playing some of the older stuff with Genesis that doesn't necessarily need that sound, you know, I can approach it more like a normal drum set where you just, they're just toms and you're kind of looking more at the tonality, not necessarily the attack that is necessary for the songs, like whether it's In the Air or Mama or stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, cool. And I put out on my YouTube channel if anybody had questions for you, and
Mm-hmm.
one person had a good question. At Greg Smith was the name. Said Genesis was always a two drummer live band. Um, do you have to approach this tour differently, knowing that it'd be just you on the kit for certain songs? Then he said, i.e., Los Endos or Behind the Lines, which you may or may not be playing. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, well, the no, it definitely was something to keep in mind, and I think the guys in the band definitely um, at first, you know, they've been used to for decades of playing with two drummers, especially on certain songs, you know, certain parts.
Mhm.
There are some songs where I've had to kind of you know, there were certain songs where Chester and my dad would kind of change off these, like, you know, they kind of do a fill and it's like and they do it like that,
Mhm.
and I've had to compensate by doing it with myself, but like,
Right.
so I'll do it with like a snare and then a double on the kick or something, and I can tell at first um it was like, oh, like, you know, my god, we've been used to playing with two drummers for a long time, but then when they understood that I was doing what they were doing just by myself, I think it kind of worked out. And I think that there's definitely certain songs that have that two drummer thing. But I also think though that for the majority of it, I try my best to kind of, especially on certain songs where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna play this fill like I was Chester, and then I'll play this fill like I was my dad, you know, and kind of have two different feels to kind of make it seem, to, you know, kind of give it that whole two drummer thing. But honestly, it really hasn't been as much of a uh, uh, you know, a challenge as I thought it would be, just because really on the record for most of these songs, it's just one drummer. You know, like, yes, Los Endos live has that, you know, massive thing, which is different to the record, but a song like Behind the Lines on the record is just, you know, one drummer. So
Mhm.
knowing that I can approach it like that and then put it in that live context, you know, it's not that big of a deal to kind of approach it, you know, that way.
Cool. So, are there any warm up routines before those gigs?
Well, I mean, the first thing is, you know, I won't eat unless it's like 2 or 3 hours before the show, just
Hmm.
because like my stomach just, it's not even a nerves thing. It's just like my stomach just doesn't really cooperate with me half the time.
Hmm.
But you know, when an hour before the show, after I've gotten changed, I'm usually one of the first people to get changed, just because I want to go and warm up with my pad and stuff. So I'll find like a quiet place somewhere backstage, whether that's the laundry room or whether,
Yeah.
a lot of the time I do it in the wardrobe, because the lady who does wardrobe for us, Carly, she's the one person who doesn't have a problem with me warming up in her room, which is great, because everybody, as soon as I take the pad out, it's like people start leaving and scattering because they just don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
But I'll do series of rudiments and different little kind of, not like mind games, but different things to kind of engage my mind in it, not just be cruise control, because I feel like as much as it is muscle memory, and to an extent is on cruise control, I do feel like you do want to be engaged, because something can go wrong or something can change, and if you're not really all there, and because it's inevitable that if you're on tour, by the 15th show it's kind of Groundhog Day, and you're kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
So always kind of keeping that sharpness, I think, is important. So I'll warm up for like half an hour to 40 minutes, and then go and play the show, and hopefully I won't have too much coffee that day, because then I'll be a bit too much adrenaline, but
too fast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, cool. So to close this, can I ask you 5 random questions?
Sure.
Get your thing. So if you could go back in time to witness any concert in history, who would you see?
Oh, that's a tough question. I would either have to say, I'd probably go with a Led Zeppelin at Madison Square Garden in 1973. I think that was when they did it.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, like, now that concert means so much to me. I mean, John Bonham was one of my absolute heroes, and Led Zeppelin is like one of my favorite bands ever. And I think being able to be at a show that now means so much to me. There's so many like of those kinds of shows. I mean, like I mentioned before, like I grew up as a massive Red Hot Chili Pepper fan,
mm-hmm.
and going back to their show at Slane Castle in 2003 would also be crazy, because it's not so much that I'm saying one band is better than the other, or Led Zeppelin's concert was better than anything. It's just I know that those concerts had such an impact on me. I remember, like, I've seen those concerts on YouTube like 50 times and all that. So probably going to one of those shows. I think those would be the ones.
Cool. Yeah. What's your most useless talent?
Oh, and I definitely have. I'm a really good. I wouldn't say it's useless. I feel like I'd be a really great secretary. With my band, they call me the secretary because I'm the one who does all the emails, who does all the documents. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily useless, but it's definitely not something that I aim on using in the big picture of my life. But I'm really good at that for some reason.
Cool. What's the most used app on your phone?
Well, it's probably Instagram or like Instagram messages, but I social media, like I use Instagram a lot, and I like Instagram, but like Twitter and Facebook, I mean, I never understood Twitter. Like, I have a Twitter, and I'll like put something when I know I should put something, when it's like promoting music or whatever.
Right.
But I just don't really understand it. And Facebook also tests my patience sometimes, because like, I don't really care about somebody commenting on somebody else's post. Like, I don't know why I'm getting a notification for that.
Right.
But I'd probably say Instagram, and then Instagram, and then maybe like, I guess, like voice memos or something to like record stuff randomly.
Cool. And then after the Genesis tour, what's next?
Well, hopefully Better Strangers gets on the road soon. I mean, there's talks of shows coming back, sometime, whether that's the summer or the fall, before I go out on the road with Genesis. And after Genesis is done, that's really kind of my main focus, is playing and recording and writing with the guys in Better Strangers. Who knows how the situation is. It's been weird, like, releasing and promoting music without being able to like back it up with some live shows. I always find that it just makes sense. And so like figuring out different ways of trying to get like people into the music and getting it out there.
Yeah, so you when you released the album, you had like a bird's eye view of you guys playing to the songs as like a way of releasing the tracks.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of finding new things. I mean, we had like filmed a bunch of different, we had done some alternate acoustic versions and some live versions and all that stuff. So just to kind of keep the engagement there when you just can't go out on the road.
Yeah.
And what's been weird is we kind of, me, Yannick, and Joey, we in the last band we were in, we had parted ways with our singer in like April 2019, and we spent, we didn't have a singer for like a year, and we spent a year trying to find somebody.
Hmm.
And then by the time we did find Ricky, and made this new band, it was like June 2020. So COVID had already been, had already hit. So not only couldn't we play a show because we didn't have a singer before, now COVID's the thing. So it's like me, Joey, and Yannick haven't just been able to play a show
Yeah.
together in like
Yeah.
2 years now,
Hmm.
almost three. But that's the goal, to really just be able to go out on the road and do some stuff with Better Strangers.
Awesome. Well, Nick, I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me,
And
man.
good luck on the Genesis tour and Better Strangers. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you so
Cool,
much.
man. Take care.
Yeah, you too.